This is PWT Talks NXT for July 29th, 2025. I'm Nate Lindberg, your host for the evening. As you can tell, I'm here by myself, so you guys get to listen to me ramble about wrestling for the next, 45 minutes or so. Kelly could not be here tonight, and I did not remember that until about an hour before the show. So hey, here we go. So we had a pretty good show tonight, I thought. A lot of moving parts, a lot of things going on. As Ryan Solario pointed out in the chat, we got a post-credit scene tonight. We'll start there because, hey, why not? It's the last thing on the show. The last scene of the show, right after the main event match, Ethan Page versus Santino Marella, we saw Tony D'Angelo sitting at a table at his restaurant, the restaurant he frequents. I don't know if we ever found out actually if it was his or not, but he was sitting at the restaurant in his nice black and red pinstripe suit. He unravels his, so a waiter comes over to him first and asks if he wants anything, calls him the Don, and he tells him not to call him the Don anymore. Tony D is just fine. He unwraps his silverware, and as he's doing so, there's a shadow that comes and kind of blocks the light from his face. The camera's kind of over his shoulder at this point, and he turns to look, and the shadow kind of obscures his face, and that's the end of the scene. Looks like we're going to probably get some more going with Tony D. I'm kind of wondering, like, who this could be. For my immediate thought goes to Two Dimes. He got killed off many moons ago, so I don't know, but I have no idea. I'm assuming he's still under contract. I think it was in either New Japan or AEW, I don't remember off the top of my head. So I didn't check into that before I actually opened my mouth, but interesting, definitely interesting. I'm curious to see how it actually plays out. Ryan agrees, the return of Two Dimes. I don't know. It's interesting. I mean, what does Tony D do now? This is something we've talked about for a while. What does Tony D do after the D'Angelo family kind of broke up? Does he move on to a different gimmick? I mean, how can he be the Don of No Mafia? It doesn't look like he's going to be continuing that gimmick if he's giving up the Don title, as he said tonight. But I'm assuming we're going to see some sort of mafioso type gimmick for him as we go forward here. According to Brock, it looked like Tony D got whacked. Maybe could be, especially since Tony D won the feud. So as Ryan says in the chat. So I don't know. Going to be interesting to see how they go on here, but I don't know. I'm looking forward to it. I know I was a little bit higher on the D'Angelo family feud than Kelly was, not by a whole heck of a lot, but a little bit. Good, interesting to see where they go with it. Good fella in the chat. How does Tony D present himself on the main roster to stand out? I don't see it yet. Sorry to say, he won't get that all the time. And I kind of agree. I as he stands right now, I don't know how he's going to fare on the main roster. And this might be, I mean, they may know that. They might know that this gimmick has a ceiling. It worked in NXT. And a lot of times these gimmicks can kind of work in a smaller environment like NXT, but then you get it to a bigger stage like main roster. I don't know. I don't know if it's necessarily I don't think it's going to necessarily pan out the way that did in NXT. He's going to have to reinvent himself, and that's part of wrestling. Continuing to, or part of being a good wrestler, I guess I should say, is continuing to reinvent yourself, over and over and over again. So eventually, you're going to get stale. Hi, CJ. CJ pops in saying hi for just a second. So hi, CJ. All right, let's go to Ethan Page versus Santino Marella for the North American Championship. We saw Ethan Page retain his title. This was a pretty good match. Santino can still go after so long. Excuse me 1 second. Of course. Anyway, Santino can still go. I haven't really seen him wrestle outside of WWE. I mean, I've just started now paying attention to TNA, but he hasn't been in a match since I've been paying attention. And I know He's been in one recently, so it just goes to show how long I've been paying attention to TNA. A few weeks before Slammiversary, really. But he can definitely still go. I thought this was a pretty good match. The um, the as the show progressed tonight from beginning to end, we kept getting these little frames of Joe Hendry. Like Joe Hendry's face would just pop up on the screen and stay there for just a few frames, maybe a split second, and just enough for you to be able to see his beautiful smiling face and move on to the next, go right back to the segment. You could still hear the audio in the matches. I think they all happened during matches, if I'm not mistaken. You could still hear the audio during the match and everything. You just saw Joe Hendry's face. We did see that here again in this match. I thought we were going to wind up seeing Joe Hendry come out here and cost Ethan the title. But considering Ethan Page's history with Joe Hendry, them going back and forth, in a feud a while back, I thought it might be cool to reinvent that. We saw Joe Hendry's face, like I said, throughout the course of the night. I figured he was going to appear in the main event, but maybe it's because nobody said his name that he didn't appear. Ethan Page won with some heel tactics, as you do. Santino Marella went for the Cobra, and Ethan Page, I forget how the referee got bumped, I think. The referee turned around, Ethan Page, thumb to the eye, roll up, and there you go. So, is what it is. I didn't really think Santino had a shot at winning the title, with the caveat of Joe Hendry interrupting and potentially costing Ethan the title. But if I kind of, as I was thinking about the match as was happening, I'm like, if Joe doesn't show up, I don't think Santino's going to win this. It would have been really cool, I think, to see a TNA wrestler hold a WWE title, considering WWE has two wrestlers that are holding TNA titles. But I said this last week, I think if they did it, it would be too soon. That we've already seen JC Jane and Trick Williams get these titles from TNA in rapid succession, something that's kind of a historic event. And so I read something in the chat that just threw me off. I'll get to it in a second. I think if the title would have been won by Santino, it just would have been this another historic moment happening too quickly. And plus, it's also Santino. He was, as much as I love the guy, comedic wrestler at best in WWE. He's really an authority figure more than anything in TNA. It probably doesn't make sense for him to win. But definitely curious to see where this goes from here. I don't think this is a one-off with Santino and Ethan Page. What did he call him? Bumhole boy? Yeah, bumhole boy Ethan Page. There we go. The thing that threw me off was Ryan Solario saying that I didn't play the music. I didn't. And the thing is, I even had it queued up.
Say his name,
See?
man.
I did, and I just wasn't on the right thing as I was talking, and the right tab in the app we use here for the show. But yeah, so there we go. I'm like I said, I don't know if this is necessarily the last time we're going to see Santino in this feud with Ethan Page, but I'm kind of wondering if Joe Hendry is the one to take the North American title from Ethan, or at least maybe be the next challenger. Joe Hendry's doing something in the near future. We know that. All right, let's keep going here. If you want to be a part of the show, why don't I do something a little different tonight? Since I'm by myself and I don't have Kelly with me, I'm going to put it in the chat. Here's a link, posting it in the chat right now, link to join the show. So if you want to join the show, click the link, you'll pop up. I'll see your little pretty face or your initials or your name or whatever if you don't want to turn on your camera, and I'll bring you on and we could talk. Until then, if anybody takes me up on that, let's talk about the, I will go, you know what? I'm just going to go backwards in my notes because that's the easiest. We had Actually, I guess that doesn't necessarily make sense. We'll start at the top. We're going to start at the top. We're going to go with our opener match tonight, Jada Parker versus Jasmine Nix. We did see Jada Parker go over here right before, and before this was like 10 minutes into the show. They had a Hulk Hogan tribute again. I'm not going to get into all of that because I got things to say and I'm not going to say them on air. But Jasmine Nix, Jada Parker was the, I guess, official start of the show, if you if you want to go there. Before the match, Jasmine Nix was shown walking backstage with Fallon Henley and JC Jane, and they were both kind of telling her I think JC said something to the effect of, if you want to be a baddie, go out there and show us how it's done, something like that. I know it was definitely if you want to be a baddie. She goes out and kind of loses in relatively short order to Jada Parker. The crowd is so behind Jada Parker right now. She's obviously been a fan favorite for quite some time, but now the crowd is chanting Miss Parker to her, the beat of her music. I know that definitely wasn't to the beat of her music, but I don't hear it in my head right now, so it's kind of hard to chant in that rhythm. But the crowd's solidly behind her all throughout this match. The match was okay. Jasmine Nix, she's all right. I think she's got some room to improve. Jada, though, I think looked great. This was okay. Thank you. Ryan just said Ryan said kind of agrees. I think if you want to call yourself a baddie, show us. I was something like that. It was something like that. This obviously is advancing a couple different storylines here. Jada Parker looking to capture NXT Gold, looking at JC Jane's NXT title, or perhaps the TNA title, maybe both. Maybe she puts both up on the line. But obviously Jada's looking for that. There's another segment later on in the night that kind of talks, it's a little bit more with Blake Monroe, and we'll get there when we get there, where Jada Parker kind of lays claim a little bit more to the NXT title, or at least facing JC Jane. So this was obviously to kind of forward that storyline, and then to kind of also continue putting a little bit of doubt within the order of Fatal Influence. JC Jane has kind of thrown some shade at Jasmine Nix and Fallon Henley as of late, and you've kind of seen by the expression on especially Fallon's face during some backstage promos and in-ring talking segments over the last handful of weeks. She doesn't necessarily appreciate that, and I'm sure Jasmine Nix doesn't either. So you kind of know there's something brewing within Fatal Influence. I apologize if I called them Fatal Attraction already, because I probably have, but Fatal Influence. So like I said, you're kind of taking those two storylines, moving them along. Looking forward to seeing where this goes. We'll kind of talk a little bit more. Actually, you know what? We'll just kind of go there now. Where was this here? Fatal Influence. Actually, well, before we get there, we'll talk about Fallon Henley versus Lash Legend. So again, we saw Fatal Influence bring Fallon Henley, accompany Fallon Henley out to the ring against Lash Legend. Fallon is Fallon's kind of out of her element a little bit here. It was Lash Legend, I think, looked she really looked like the sorry, I'm also on call for work, and now I have somebody pinging me. I'll get back to them later. Sorry, Lash Legend. She's clearly a star. They had so much for her in the Royal Rumble. Obviously eliminating Nikki Bella. And there was one other that she eliminated, and then she mentioned it, and I obviously can't remember right now. But there's a lot going on for Lash Legend. I thought she looked pretty good here. In the middle of the match, or towards the end of the match, we actually saw Nia Jax come out and attack Fallon Henley. Fallon Henley did win. I don't know if I mentioned that. Fallon Henley got won by pinfall. But after the match, it was after the match actually. Nia Jax No, sorry. After the match, Nia hit her bonsai drop on Lash, but she made the interference in the middle of it. Not expecting to talk about Nia Jax here tonight. Nia, I mean, she's definitely got NXT ties. You know, she debuted in NXT. So I guess cool to see her come back. It's Nia Jax. Meh, whatever. It Even though I'm not necessarily super excited about seeing her come back, she's clearly a big star. You know, obviously ties to The Rock and things like that. People know that. So her coming down to NXT and kind of having this feud with Lash Legend, and this might even, who knows, this could even spill over to the main roster. I think that says something for what they want to do here with Lash Legend. I think they definitely see the star that she is. I agree with Goodfella. I think Lash is a solo act. Jakara Jackson's now signed with TNA. Asked if Ryan Solario asked if would see a reunion of Jakara and Lash. It's certainly possible we might see her do a run-in or something like that. But at the same time, I don't know. I don't know. This is just my immediate gut thought. But like, if you just release somebody, do you want to bring, and then they get signed with another company, do you want to bring them right back? I don't know. I don't know if that puts a weird taste in people's mouths. It just seems maybe a little weird to me. But I mean, anything's possible with this TNA partnership. Like, there's so many things that have happened since this partnership over the last, 6-8 months, however long it's been, that we never thought we'd see. So you never know. You never know. But all right, let's keep moving on. Keep moving on. We'll go to Charlie Dempsey versus Tavion Heights. This match was fantastic as far as I'm concerned. Tavion finally gets out of the NQCC by going over Charlie Dempsey. You know, again, and Corey Graves even called this out in the match. This is something that I've been wondering for a while, and this is the first time that I think they've acknowledged it on TV, at least that I can remember. Maybe they have before, but at least the first time this stood out to me, Corey was like, I want to know what it is, like what's going on with the NQCC? Like, they have a contract? Why is he stuck in the NQCC? Why can't he just leave? You know, and they kind of, at least they brought it up, but they didn't give us a reason as to why. So my question was at least addressed on TV. I'm glad. Wow. It's definitely getting late in the day. I was mid-sentence and my thought just completely, I forgot what I was talking about. It's obviously Charlie Dempsey versus Tavion Heights. Thank you to my notes and being still on Charlie Dempsey, Tavion Heights. Yeah, so I don't know why this match even like had to happen in the first place. You know, Kevin Catani said this a while ago on the show when he was co-hosting with me, that, you know, it maybe Tavion just wanted the respect of Charlie Dempsey, the leader, the one that's taught him the most. So I guess if you want to go that way, maybe that's what the story is. You know, he taught him the most, and we wanted to get that respect. I don't know. I don't know what it is. Regardless, fantastic match. And, you know, he's now out of the NQCC to kind of go and try to attain other things. They started, this is the first time I noticed it tonight. They may have called him this before, but they were calling him the Olympic, I think it was the Olympic boy. I know somebody will correct me in chat if I'm wrong, but I think it was like the Olympic boy. So, you know, obviously Tavion Heights was, you know, in the Olympics. I don't think he won a medal or anything, but he was definitely in the Olympics for wrestling. So, you know, they're kind of following, you know, we're kind of talking a little bit about that. I'm curious to see where he goes. I mean, obviously we had in the chat, Brock Freedom. And then somebody's like, shout out a Braveheart. Goodfellas has shouted Braveheart. Obviously we have Miles Bourne, who obviously just left the NQCC. He's kind of going on to do bigger and better things. He had, you know, even added NXT title match against Dova Femi, came up short, but had the match nonetheless, something that Tavion Heights had not done, or even Charlie Dempsey hasn't done in the NQCC. I am I'm curious to see where Tavion Heights goes. Like I I don't see the charisma there for him to be a solo act, but maybe he's been pulling it back and we'll see something new out of him. I could be wrong, but in terms of not seeing that charisma, I mean, or maybe I'm just not seeing what other people see. But he obviously is a fantastic talent. So this is developmental. Maybe he works on that and kind of goes from there. Speaking of Miles Bourne sat down with Vic Joseph in a pre-recorded backstage interview and kind of talked a little bit about how he became deaf, and he was born with, and I didn't write it down, but it was something hypertension. And he was born with that. He was actually med flighted to a hospital like after birth. Actually flatlined twice on the med flight. Was put on a machine, taken off the machine, and his heart kept beating. Like this really cool, incredible story. Really like what I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but an incredible story about his life and how he became deaf. 90% deaf in both ears, so he relies a lot on lip reading and things like that. But I thought this was a really cool sit down and kind of acknowledgement of the disability and kind of showing that it's not going to hold him back. He's going to go over, he's going to still try and reach his goals and reach his dreams, and he's not going to back down. I really like that. I admire that. And I'm kind of glad that they're not shying away from the disability, but they're leaning into it, because for the last, year or so, however long it's been that he's been on the NXT roster, they've made reference to it, but it was mostly like by making a little joke at it, and I don't mean a joke like it was usually a tasteful joke. It's usually Miles himself making that joke, or at least acknowledging the joke in whatever way. One of my favorite things when I went to NXT Lowell back in December in Lowell, Massachusetts, right before Christmas, the Miles Bourne gets knocked out of the ring to end the show. It gets knocked out of the ring, and he's lying right down on the ground in front of me. I was sitting front row, and Vic Joseph just walks by, and he's like, Miles, are you okay? Are you okay? What? Can you not hear me? Miles. And he just keeps screaming at him. Finally, Vic just walks away. And this was like after the show had already gone off the air. Thought it was hilarious. But just little things like that, they've kind of stringed along. And I'm glad that they're finally now acknowledging it, leaning into it, and using it as an inspirational. That's the word I think I was looking for earlier. Using it as kind of an inspirational story, for those that may need that representation. I know there's I mean, we could get into a whole topic about this, but I'm not going to. Over the years, not every group has been represented or represented fairly in the world of wrestling, WWE, and all of that. We're still even kind of working on it. But I do like the kind of leaning into this. They're not treating him like they did Zach Gowen. And that's even a bad comparison. Zach Gowen and Miles Bourne are definitely different wrestlers, and one has two legs. I can make that joke. My dad lost a leg, so I've got an amputee in the family. Anyway. God, Kelly, what did you do? You left me to go off the rails by myself. I'm going to get myself canceled. Brock Benningfield's crazy stuff from Miles. Good fellow. Miles is cool, so easy to root for. He really is. He's got just this cool factor about him. He's and this might sound like a bad thing when I say he is kind of on the plain side. Like, it doesn't really there's not a lot that necessarily stands out about him visually. Kind of just looks like another wrestler, almost like a creator wrestler or something like that. But the charisma is definitely there. The in-ring ability is definitely there. And you don't always need, I guess you don't always need an outlandish, crazy look, like Randy Orton, for example. Who's always just wrestled in trunks and went off his good looks. Miles Bourne certainly could do that too. All right, let's keep going. We already had talked about Fatal Influence, and it's up on my screen. So we'll talk about this. Fatal Influence had it was a during the commercial break, this happened, type of a thing, where Fatal Influence is out in the parking lot, kind of, they're bickering and kind of, again, teasing kind of some cracks forming in the group. Nia Jax comes out, gets right in the, like, kind of interrupts them, gets right in the face of the camera. Again, I think this is in the parking lot. I know it's in the parking lot. I don't know if I mentioned that. But Nia gets right in the face of the cameraman, and calls Lash Legend out, for attacking her at Evolution, and like, this is what you get. This is what you get. I forget exactly the words that she said, but that's basically it. Making sure that Lash knows that Nia is watching. I'm sure we'll see that going. We've already talked about that, so we'll kind of move on. Let's see. We had Javon Evans versus Wes Lee. I think, man, as good as Charlie Dempsey and Tavion Heights was, I think the match of the night for me was Javon Evans and Wes Lee. This was the car crash that you thought it would be when you heard me say Javon Evans versus Wes Lee, if you haven't actually watched the show yet. They have incredible chemistry together. Their styles are so incredibly similar. They just work so well together. Javon Evans pulling off a move that I've never personally seen before. I've seen a coast to coast before, most famous by Rob Van Dam and stolen by Shane McMahon. And I'm sure other wrestlers have done it too, but those are the two that definitely stick out in my head. Javon wound up doing like a swanton in the middle of it. So he kind of like pivoted with his head like in the exact center of the rope, like center of the ring, and then his feet came down to hit Wes Lee, who's in the Tree of Woe position, on the opposite corner. That looked incredible. I mean, they used 20-foot rings, so it was a 20-foot jump. I mean, Ryan in the chat, that swanton bomb to Tree of Woe hanging. The swanton bomb to the Tree of Woe hanging Wes Lee looked brutal for Javon. It did. It looked like it hurt. It looked like, and Wes definitely got his hands up, but the feet, Javon Evans' feet came right for his face. It was really cool. It was really cool looking. I think it was definitely my favorite spot of the night. Yeah, by far. Probably one of my favorite coast to coast I've ever seen. And there are so many good ones, Rob Van Dam and all of that. The Van Terminator, I believe, or Van Dam. No, it was a Van Terminator. Oh no! Oh my God! I don't remember. Somebody correct me. Somebody let me know. I could Google it, but I'm hosting a show. Somebody will let me know. I think it was a Van Terminator, for Rob Van Dam. High Rise got involved in this, and this match kind of came to be when Javon, earlier in the night, let me scroll up my notes here. Javon walked back. This was after Jada Parker versus Jasmine Nix. We saw Javon walking backstage, as he was kind of making his way out to the ring. He walked past High Rise, and he kind of like gave them crap for not backing Trick Williams last week when he was in the ring toe to toe with The Undertaker. He and High Rise kind of just let him keep walking. Like they started kind of trying to give a little, like, I don't know, what was the word I'm looking for? They kind of gave a little bit of lip to him, but ultimately allowed Javon Evans to keep walking. And then Javon walked past Chase University when we saw Andre Chase telling Dixon and Connors to go after the biggest dog, and that sets up another angle for a little bit later. Ryan, thank you. Van Terminator. I thought I was right. And then I started second guessing myself. Got to stick with my gut. And actually, I didn't know that. Jerry Lynn, Jerry Lynn, I guess, was the first one to take the Van Terminator. Cool. Unfortunately, I don't think I got ECW up here in New England, or at least on my cable, like the cable package that my parents had back in the day. So never got to watch ECW live, unfortunately. Though I wish I could, even back then. but yeah, so Javon Evans, he ends up coming out into the ring to call out Obafemi, and um, because he wants to lay claim to the NXT title. Trick Williams winds up coming out and kind of defends High Rise for not attacking or not helping him out with the Undertaker. Um, Evans says he's targeting Oba, not Trick Williams. Tension between them kind of starts to escalate a little bit. And like I said, that's what kind of set up the match for later on in the night. I think this feud between the two of them is going to continue. I think we're probably going to wind up seeing both of them being Wesley and Javon Evans, wind up facing Obafemi in a triple threat, maybe at Heatwave. If not, then maybe they have a match to determine who's going to be the contender to face him at Heatwave. I don't necessarily want to see the triple threat, especially considering I'm going to be at Heatwave. But I think that match could still be cool. The triple threat could still be a lot of fun. I'd much rather see a one-on-one, but considering Wesley and Javon Evans, and then you put Obafemi in there's going to be a lot of people flying around, and it should make for a lot of good action if that's the direction they go. So yeah, there we go. Let's see what else. The Blake Monroe promo. So I did mention Blake Monroe earlier in the night, and I don't remember why now, but I know I did. We had Blake Monroe come out to expose Jordynne Grace, as she says. She comes out and she kind of starts cutting Jordynne Grace down. She shows a picture of Jordynne Grace up on the Titantron, for those of you who remember it being called the Titantron. And the picture of Jordynne Grace was from years ago, before she had gotten completely cut and ripped and jacked and became the Juggernaut. I think she still looked good in the picture. Not gonna lie, she she was obviously a little bit bigger, but so what? She was still wrestling back then. This got massive heat from Blake Monroe for doing some body shaming, and I think this works through the Blake Monroe character, kind of being petty and mean. And she basically says that Jordynne Grace is not championship material, especially like that. And then, of course, she doesn't call herself a Barbie, but she may as well have, and parades herself around the ring saying that this is what a champion should look like. We got Lola Vice, Jada Parker, and Kalani Jordan all interrupting here, but big props to Lola Vice for coming out and shutting her up first. Lola Vice, the first one out, and kind of shutting her up and getting her to stop kind of picking on poor Jordynne Grace, who was apparently not here. Oh, that's right. She's not allowed in the building. Or at least she wasn't last week, and I'm assuming that was probably the case this week. After what happened at was it Evolution? Oh my God, there were two live events back to back. It was either Evolution or Great American Bash. There's some kind of tension that's teased between Blake and Jada towards the end of this segment. Obviously, there's a big brawl that breaks out and all of that. We have and then this also sets up Kalani versus Blake for next week. I think. I know I talked a little bit about the women's division. We might, and I don't remember exactly. Yeah. Anyway, I've been rambling now for about a half an hour or so, so I don't remember exactly what I said earlier. But Blake Monroe, it seems like they're kind of putting her in the main event title scene. The fact that we know Jada is looking for JC's title, and now we've got some tension between Jada Parker and Blake Monroe. Maybe we'll kind of see some of that happening there. Ryan in the chat, he was confused if Kalani was heel or face when she came out, and so was I. But I've also been confused whether Kalani's been a heel or face for a while now. She's been presented as a baby face and for the most part, but then she kind of does some heelish things and says some off-color things. I don't know. I'm kind of in my head. She's still in the babyface column, but I'm thinking that there might be an inevitable heel turn, or maybe they're just hoping that Kalani, with a little bit more edge to her, gets over with the crowd and she becomes more of a natural babyface. I don't know. But even though, like I said, she's still in the babyface column, like there's still doing heel in my head anyway, still doing those heelish things, and I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens over the next handful of weeks, but it's got to be at least a few months now where it's been, is she or isn't she? Good fella saying, I'm doing great. Hey, thanks. I appreciate it. She was presented as Ryan says she was presented as a pure babyface last week. She being Kalani, that's true, and she was. And a couple weeks before that, I mean, and she's usually presented as a babyface, and then she says things like she does tonight, and the kind of her tone of voice and things like that really, I don't know, at least rubs me the wrong way, and I'm sure it does other people. I think it's kind of by design. So I don't know. I'm not really sure. Goodfella saying Jada stands out. Let's see what her next level is. I agree. I mean, Jada, again, going back to when I went to NXT back in December, Jada, there were two people that really stood out to me, and I've said this a bunch of times now on the show. Jada Parker and Luca Crucifino. They stood out to me because for a couple reasons. Obviously, their in-ring work and all of that, but they were so comfortable in the ring that during commercial breaks and things when the cameras weren't on, they were interacting with the crowd. Like the crowd starts shouting something at them, and it's happening all night where the crowd's shouting stuff at wrestlers. But Luca and Jada were the ones that played off of it, and in my opinion, felt like the most comfortable, like with the exception of like the really top guys and all that. But you know what I mean? They felt so comfortable in the ring that they really stood out to me. I think the ceiling for Jada is huge. If she comes up to the main roster with the same momentum that she has had over the last handful of weeks, months, I think the sky is the limit for her. I really do. Let's see. We had a segment with the Culling and Luca Crucifino, Tatum Paxley, the Culling and Tatum Paxley. I don't know why Luca's name's in there. The Culling, Tatum Paxley, Culling. Tatum Paxley was kind of talking with Izzy Dame backstage, saying how she wants to face Sol Ruca since she got the win last week. She's like, I want to face Sol Ruca. And Izzy's like, well, you didn't pin the champion, so, you need to pin the champion to get a title shot. And I didn't realize that was a rule. I don't know if it is a rule or if it's just Izzy Dame talking, because that's how she wound up getting a title shot. And then immediately afterwards, we have the rest of the Culling. Sean Spears walks over and says that he just talked as an appreciation for her winning her match last week. He just talked to Ava and is getting her a match for next week. And that's okay. Thank you. Luca did show up at the end of the scene. That's right. I totally forgot about that. It's saying something like "family doesn't last forever." Kind of they zoomed into his face. I totally forgot that happened in the scene. Thank you. Yeah, and Tatum's all excited for getting this match next week, hugs him, and then at the end of the segment, we saw Luca saying "family doesn't last forever" or something to that effect. In the chat we see Brock saying Luca going from mob to cult, and that could very well be. Wouldn't surprise me, because again, the same conversation that we just had about Tony D'Angelo. Where do we go with? We kind of have an idea with Stacks. We saw Stacks in another segment. We'll get to that in a second. But obviously, how do you take all of these people from this mafioso gimmick, this mafioso angle, and then take them out of that and have them continue to thrive? They really need to reinvent themselves. I hope Luca isn't joining the Culling, because I feel like that's a death sentence for him, and he's, I think, much more talented than they give him credit for, at least from what I've seen personally. Yeah, I hope the Culling is not where he's necessarily going. Let's see. Let's keep moving on. I'm going out of order, So I'm all over the place in my notes. So bear with me a minute. Oh, all right. Earlier, I mentioned that Javon Evans walked past Chase University, and Andre Chase was telling Uriah Connors and Cale Dixon. I can't believe I remembered their names. He was telling them to go after the biggest dog in the yard. I thought they might show up at Roman Reigns' trailer or house or something like that, but no, they don't want to admit that he used to be called the big dog, I don't think. And instead, we see kind of a comedic angle, which usually is the case with Chase University, Hank and Hank and Tank for that matter, where Dixon and Connors are outside of the men's locker room. They're like, all right, they're in there. We're going to go in there. We're going to attack them with chairs because everybody knows if you attack champion backstage, you're going to get a title shot within the next couple weeks. Kind of poking fun at the trope that, you know, usually that's really all you got to do if you want a title shot is to attack the champion backstage. And then if it's a babyface champion, they're like, I want them tonight. And they put the title on the line. I can't remember which is which. I think it was Connors, that opens the door. I don't know which is which name is which, but one of them opens the door to see if they're in there because the other one was like, wait, you didn't even know? You didn't check to see if they're in there? So he opens the door. You see Hank and Tank perfectly in there. They're the only two in the men's locker room, which is interesting. And close the door. Oh, yep, they're in there, and he definitely saw me. It's like, when do we go? Do we 1, 2, 3 go, or 1, 2, and then we go on 3? Finally, they decide. They go in wielding their chairs, and they have like a war cry, but the war cry just really sounds like them shrieking out of because they're kind of scared of running in and seeing Hank and Tank there. Hank and Tank kind of do the same thing. And they hold up their title belts as weapons to the chairs that Chase University is holding. And basically, like, what are you doing? Oh, we want a title match. So we're going to attack you. It's like, all you had to do was ask. You don't need to attack us. Oh, well, that's all we had to do. I thought it was a pretty funny scene. We had Andre Chase coming in at the end of it and scolding Chase University for trying to go about getting a match in that way. But Hank and Tank were like, no, it's all good, man. We'll talk to Ava. We'll get this set for next week. I thought, as stupid as it was, I thought it was pretty funny. Kind of an interesting way to set it up and kind of continue the narrative that Cale Dixon and Uriah Connors are just frat boys, I guess, is the best way I can describe it. Kind of frat boys. They don't really know any better. They're learning. And obviously they learned that by just watching wrestling that if you want a title shot, attack the champion. That they try. Didn't actually work out. Well, I guess it did work out. They didn't have to attack, and they still got the title match. So there we go. What else? Yes, I mentioned Stacks. So backstage, we had another angle where we saw Briggs, Inamura, and Stacks. Briggs was kind of like complaining that Inamura cost him the title last week and that these opportunities don't come along very often. Inamura steps in and, you know, says that you don't have any honor, you don't fight with honor. Stacks happens to be in the room because they're in a big locker room. There's a bunch of people around, including Ariana Grande. Wow, that's not her. Santino's daughter. Oh wow! Oh my God! She's been off NXT TV for so long. I can't remember her name. Somebody will remind me. Oh wow! Adriana Grace Jordan. Oh wow! I'm done. I don't remember. But she was in the room too. Stacks winds up warning that. Warning everybody that, you know, family doesn't last forever, and you got to look out for number one. So I don't know. I think we're going to kind of see Stacks be a bit of a, pardon my French, bit of a shit stir backstage. So you know, we'll see. I thought it was interesting. We're going to see. I didn't finish the segment. Inamura says, gets in Stack's face and says that you have no honor, and I'm going to show you honor next week, setting up a match between the two of them for next week. That should be a fantastic match. Stacks is incredibly underrated as far as I'm concerned. Probably not by all of us, but okay, it was Ariana Grace. Thank you, Ryan. I thought that was wrong, but maybe I said Adriana. I don't know. Ariana Grace, that was her name, Santino's daughter. She what was I talking? Oh, Stacks. Stacks, very underrated performer as far as I'm concerned. Again, maybe not in our circle, our little bubble of the world here. But yeah, I think that match between him and Inamura next week should be off the hook. So definitely looking forward to that. Again, don't know where they're going to go from there with it, with Stacks or I mean, with Inamura and Briggs. I'm sure that they're going to continue their feud, you know, but with Stacks, I don't really know where they go from here. So I'm kind of looking towards next week to see if that points Stacks in a direction that we can kind of sink our teeth into, and he can sink his teeth into. And with that, we had another angle with Ava, Stevie Turner, and Robert Stone, kind of giving some injury updates from Jordan for Jordan and Ricky Saints, saying they'll come back soon. Lexis King winds up coming in the room to talk, to spew more conspiracy theories about Miles Bourne. The Miles Bourne interview aired right before this. To spew some more of his conspiracy theories. And Ava gave him a match against Bourne for next week because, you know, that's, I guess, just about some conspiracy theories if you want a match against somebody you don't like. I kind of looking forward to that match like next week, more so to see Miles Bourne. Lexis King, I don't know, I guess I kind of take or leave with his current direction, or really lack thereof, because his real direction is just kind of being a thorn in the side of Miles Bourne and John Evans. But yeah, so, you know, with that, let me look at my notes again. Yeah, I think that is going to bring us to the end of our show. So I did it fairly quick. We got 47 minutes of PWT Talks NXT this week. Kelly is in Chicago for this big card convention he talked about last week. So that's where he is tonight. And Jobin was moving. So I didn't even bother asking Jobin to join me on the show because, well, I figured after a whole long day of moving, they probably weren't going to want to do a show. So I'm Nate Lindberg. Check the things I do out at natelindberg.com. Thank you for listening to me ramble for the last 47 minutes and 48 seconds. And we'll see you next week. Take care.